Welcome to Ivy and Ivy, Generations of Justice.
Welcome back to Ivy and Ivy, Generations of Justice, where Sam and Vic Ivy of Ivy and Ivy Law break down the law and fight for the injured. With decades of experience in West Tennessee courtrooms, Sam and Vic help people navigate life after car crashes, serious injuries, and insurance disputes with honesty, strategy, and heart. I'm Sophia Morales, and today's episode focuses on what happens right after a car accident, what steps to take to make all the difference. This is what to do after a car accident in Tennessee. Legal steps that matter. Welcome back, you guys. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Thanks for having us on, Sophia.
Thanks, Sophia. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. So starting with the basics, what's the first thing someone should do after a car accident, both legally and practically? Because sometimes we're conscious and able to do things, and other times we're in the hospital and we wake up days later going, what the heck happened?
Well, the first thing that you need to do after a car accident, obviously, is to, depending upon the severity of the accident, you're going to want to cooperate with the medical personnel. The EMTs are going to arrive on the scene. If you're severely injured, you're going to be transported by either ground ambulance or by air evac, where you take a helicopter, a chopper ride to a major medical facility. So first thing you really need to do is cooperate with the medical personnel. And then after that, you could call us and we can take it from there. But if it's not too severe and you are just injured, but not just a major injury, then the first thing that you probably should do is look around, see if there are any witnesses there that are available. Try to get their names, cooperate with the law enforcement authorities that are there. And then after you complete all that, then give us a call and we can take the case from there. But we build cases based upon evidence. So we want to try to preserve all the evidence that we can because we're always looking at trial. And the insurance companies know that at Ivy and Ivy that we are preparing to go to trial. Now, clearly 95% of the cases settled, but we're always going for trial. What would you say, Sam?
I would echo that. I think it depends. I know that's always the lawyer answer.
It's the lawyer answer, exactly.
It depends on, as Dad said, what is your situation? If you're obviously in terrible shape, you need to follow the medical personnel. You'd probably be in an ambulance. And then at that point, I would make sure that if I was a victim in a car wreck, that I'm okay. And then you could, give us a call once you're stabilized. We can even come to the hospital and visit if that's the situation. However, if you're in better shape, collect all the evidence that you can at the scene, call the police, get them there so they can do a report and take pictures of everything. We have cell phones these days where that can be done. If you're in, I know you're in shock after the accident, but once you come to, it's important to collect as much evidence as possible if you're in good enough shape to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the mistakes that people make in the early days, like right at the accident or after the accident, that can actually hurt their injury claims later on?
One of the big mistakes that we see people make time and time again is feeling that they have to cooperate fully with an insurance company. Let's say it's the at-fault party, the other person that caused the accident's insurance company is calling them, wanting them to sign some things and or take a recorded statement of their version of the events. That simply doesn't have to be done at that time. And quite frankly, we advise people that it's improper because you could be under the influence of morphine, painkillers, over-the-counter stuff. You're injured, you're in bad shape, and your state of mind isn't fully clear to be able to respond to those questions at that time. So that's one of the things that we see that's a mistake that a lot of people make. The best thing and the most prudent thing to do, in our opinion, would be to call us, call a lawyer, get them involved, and let us take it from there while you work on your recovery.
Okay, so you say you get that phone call from the other side's insurance company. How best to conduct that conversation? Hi, very nice to hear from you, and I'm retaining a firm, or how should that play out?
I think the best thing to do, and Dad, I'll let you chime in too, but I think the best thing to do would be to be polite, of course, courteous to the adjuster. I'm not saying, be a jerk on the phone or anything. However, I think the best way to respond to that question would be, sir or ma'am, I'm not in the best shape right now to be able to conduct a recorded statement at this time. I'm in pain. I'm still addled from the accident. Can you call back another time or something of that nature, or at least put it off until you're able to speak with a personal injury attorney who can better advise you on how to put yourself in the right position.
Many times,
Very good.
yeah, those
So-
recorded statements get you in trouble, Sophia.
Yeah.
You have to be extremely careful with those things, and that's why so many people in these type cases, maybe like Sam said, maybe they're taking pain medication or something like that, and then they give a statement that I feel great, I'm really feeling good. Well, 2 hours later, they're in the bed and they can't move. So it's very important to sit back, relax, probably talk to us before you even consider giving a recorded statement.
I like that. So what I'm hearing you say is when they call, use the accident and being shook up from the accident as the reason to get them off the phone, but don't tip your hands that you're going to be talking to an injury lawyer.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, what we always advise our clients at any point in their case, whether we're retained or not, is to be honest, to tell the truth. That's the main ticket in any of these cases. But with that being said, there's nothing wrong with, being polite and courteous and pushing that conversation off until you're in a better condition to do so. And hopefully at that time you've made contact with us or a personal injury lawyer of your choosing to handle that for you. Because once you retain an attorney, they're no longer able to speak with you directly. So they'll have to go through the law office anyway.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation the other day where there was a lawyer who said, well, you don't need to tell the truth the way you think you need to tell the truth. It's not that we're going to lie, but we're also not going to open the door for pitfalls and that sort of thing, which is why you want the attorney.
And it's like Dad said, when you're seriously injured in an accident, sometimes these conditions and injuries don't manifest themselves for several days, and you may not know the full extent of what you're going through at that time. So, as he said too, if you're under the influence of narcotics or something like that, you may feel great at that time. 2 hours later, you may feel terrible, but it doesn't look the same once the adjuster has gotten that you're feeling great down on a transcript, on a recorded statement. That's going to be used against you later.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Sophia, with all that said, cooperate with the law enforcement.
Oh, yeah. The police, that's a different matter, right?
That's a totally different matter because they're on your side. This is not a situation where, you're at fault and done any great big thing wrong. Of course, unless you're driving impaired or you were the one texting or caused the accident to start with. But, if you're a victim, and that's what we do is represent victims, mainly of car crashes and personal injury like that. And since I've done this so many years as a federal prosecutor, an assistant district attorney, state prosecutor, I've represented all of the state agencies that you're probably going to wind up dealing with. You're going to, whether after you're injured, you're going to wind up dealing with either TennCare, Medicaid, or, a federal agency, Medicare, or,
Highway Patrol,
all the law enforcement officers, comptroller's office, even the IRS. I'm not my favorite agency, but I've represented the IRS.
I don't know that they're anyone's favorite agency.
Those are hard cases to try,
Sure.
The IRS, because nobody's a big fan of them. But, you're going to deal with federal and state agencies, and we have experience with all of them. I've represented all of them, FBI, DEA, ICE, which used to be INS.
Or we'll deal with private agencies too. So we know how to navigate that.
Exactly. You know what's behind the curtain over there, which is a beautiful amount of insight. So when there's been an accident, should someone always call the police to get a report?
I would always call the police if it's any accident of any significance. That helps, number one, to document what has occurred, and that helps protect you in the future and gain valuable information such as the other person's insurance, their policy number, their address, their contact info. Hopefully it's a you're in good enough shape to speak with the other person. And sometimes these terrible accidents we're dealing with, you have no choice. I mean, the law enforcement is going to be there along with an air evac and an ambulance. But in a normal situation, I probably would get law enforcement involved in any accident of any significance.
And Sophia, I'm an old battle axe lawyer, so I've tried a gazillion cases, but I'm always thinking about trial and how that's going to appear in trial. And even though a police report is not admissible per se, you don't introduce the police report as evidence. The policeman that's on the stand when you're actually trying a case can refer back to his report to refresh his recollection.
Right.
So it's important to call the police, in my opinion, so that they can prepare a report, and it helps them because they deal with so many different accidents and events that occur during a day that they need to refer back to that report.
It could be years down the road before we would try that case, and so the police officer's not going to remember that particular accident if there's no report to refresh his memory with. That's going to be a very difficult exercise.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be your best witness under those conditions because the rest of the witnesses didn't sit down and write a report.
Yes, ma'am.
That's true.
So let's go back to that circumstance where you were knocked out, you were airlifted to some hospital, and you wake up several days later. In that scenario, is it you that has to call you guys, or could a spouse or a parent or a child reach out to you guys on behalf of the injured party?
So it's perfectly fine for a family member to reach out to us. And I would advise that if you're seriously injured, make sure that you're going to be okay first and foremost. And then, once you're got your wits about you, even if you're at the hospital, you could always pick up the phone and give us a call, or a family member could. It's just, we cannot come up there uninvited. That's unethical to do that. So we would need at least a family member or a contact person to reach out to us, let us know the situation, reach out for help, and then we'll do whatever is needed to make contact with you.
Extend that invitation. Come on down.
Yeah, and that's it. And Sophia, that's important for folks to call us early on to get us in it because, as you know, and we discussed, I'm always looking toward trial. And that's what differentiates us from most law firms, because most law firms will advertise for settlements, that we're going to settle your case. You've had a car accident, we'll settle your case. And we do, and 95%, would you say, Sam, cases settle? But
it's probably a high percentage.
It's a high percentage, but if they know that you're preparing for trial and you're headed for trial and you will actually present that case to a jury, you can obtain more money. You get a better monetary award if they know that you're going to go to trial on this. So,
and if you jump on it early while you're in the hospital room, there could be evidence disappearing at that time. So once you put it in a lawyer's hands, we can get to work. We can get our investigators on board collecting the evidence that will be needed to prevail in court and or drive up the settlement value.
Exactly. Well, and if you accept something while you're still in the hospital bed, I mean, you don't know what the ramification of your injuries are going to be at this point, right? We don't know if you're fine in 6 weeks or if you're going to need multiple surgeries.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of these cases take 6 months. Some of them take 6 years. It's a matter of every case is different. The facts are different. The injuries are different. So we would never try to resolve a case prior to knowing the full extent of the client's injuries and build that case around the medical evidence that the medical doctor has stated in his records.
Right. Well, and speaking of medical documentation, I know a lot of times after an injury, you think you're kind of okay, right? Your adrenaline's up, you're not bleeding anywhere, right? I think I'm all right. How important is it to go to the doctor anyway to start that medical documentation and to suss out the things that you're not feeling quite yet?
We have to have medical documentation, Sophia, because that is our proof at trial. When we show up there and try to present what your injuries are, it's going to be based upon what that medical doctor says. Now, if you're at home and your back's hurting, your neck's hurting, whatever, you got a head injury, You can complain all day long to your spouse or, your child or whoever neighbor, but until you document that with medical proof, it doesn't really count at trial. And so that's what we're basing this on. When we get to those cases of trial, we're always looking, first of all, the liability. We have to establish that you weren't at fault. You're not the one that caused the accident. It was the other party that caused the accident. And then we have to prove your damages. So, and your damages are going to be based upon whatever that medical proof is. So if you don't go to the doctor, you don't treat, you get yourself taken care of, it's almost impossible to prove your pain and suffering and all those other elements that go into these lawsuits.
And the other thing really too is a plaintiff, injured person in a car wreck or other incident, really has a duty to mitigate their damages from a wreck. So if you wait to go to the doctor for months at a time, you could be doing more harm to yourself from an injury than you otherwise would if you had gone to the doctor and gotten advice of a professional. You need to take care of yourself too, regardless of how the litigation goes or the car wreck case goes. But, we've had cases before where, clients are walking around at the scene, they appear to be okay. And then many days later, something comes up, they start experiencing pain, an MRI is done, and something, for example, a ruptured disc is found. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to go to the doctor, seek medical help for proof in the case, but also to make sure you're going to be okay as well after the accident.
Well, and I know a lot of times when something like this happens, you go from financially kind of all right to like your financial world is blown up. You can't go to work. You've got doctor bills, and then adding a lawyer on top of this. What do you have to say to people who are in this financial extremis? How do you start to prioritize and get the legal assistance you need?
Well, with us, as far as our fee is concerned, our fee does not come out until the end, after the case is all over with. So there's no money up front. The injured party, the client, does not owe any money at all up front to us, and we're able to front the expenses as far as the investigation is concerned, hiring experts, that sort of thing, to get the case put together. Many elements that go into this as far as proving our case, where we hire a reconstructionist or a person, an expert to pull the information off of, say, like the airbag module, where you can determine the speed of the car. Maybe you can also determine through that if there's a red light violation. Somebody ran a red light, where you get the timing of the red light and you get the speed of the individual coming through, so it can show who was at fault at that. So it's important for us to be able to gather together all of the evidence in that. But there's no fee as far as we're concerned until the end of the case.
And the other thing that's very stressful for injured individuals is how confusing the medical billing is in this country. Many times the charges that are sent to you, you may get something in the mail that says this is not a bill, but it's for several $1,000s from the hospital. And that stresses a lot of our clients out and a lot of people that are injured in these auto accidents. When you get us on board, we know how to navigate that situation, and we're able to reach out to those providers and many times work out an arrangement where they're no longer getting hounded over these bills until their case resolves. Not saying that happens every single time, but we have ways of taking the stress off of our injured clients and dealing with all those bills that pile up while we go through their case. And we think that helps them feel better.
I love that. So what happens if there's like a shift of blame as you're going through this situation? An example I would share is I had a girlfriend who got run off the road and woke up in the hospital after back surgery and a bunch of stuff like a couple of weeks later, and the police came to arrest her because they couldn't get her side of the story. They're just acting on the other person's side of the story.
Oh my gosh. Well, if worse comes to worse, and the facts of the accident are going to come out in the wash eventually. But if the insurance company is, twisting the facts, they're building the case against the person, it's very important to get your own lawyer involved And on the civil side, again, as Dad said, we don't charge a fee to do that up front. Our fee comes off of what we recover for you. But it's very important to get a lawyer involved to protect your own interests in that situation. And it could be that the table is leveled with a phone call or an initial letter. However, it may be that a lawsuit needs to be filed to protect your interest. And many times that's what happens when the blame is being shifted on you. We get into litigation and, again, hopefully it resolves down the road. But if it needs to go to trial, we're comfortable doing that as well. So it may end up in a lawsuit if that's the situation, Sophia.
And Sophia, what happens a lot of times with individuals where the insurance company may not be just denying the claim, but they'll say it's under investigation. And while it's under investigation, you're without a car, your car has been totaled, you can't drive your car. So not only are you injured, but once you kind of recover from your injuries, you don't have an automobile to drive. So in those instances, usually your insurance, your own insurance company will pick up and pay for the cost of the car. And they usually go by the Kelley Blue Book value of the car for property damage and figuring out what they are. But after that, once liability shifts back to the person that actually caused the accident, in your case, the girlfriend that was run off the road, if there is, you're able to prove that there was another party involved, maybe cameras, doorbell, ring cameras, maybe a business had a camera in the neighborhood, maybe there's some witnesses that might have seen something occur out there, then you can recover that way, and we go back and pick up the proof and do it that way.
Yeah, so it's a long process, but we can help put you in the right position in that scenario that you just discussed. Very important to get a lawyer in that situation that your friend was dealing with. Sorry she had to go through that.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's good to have these reassuring words of wisdom from you guys, because it can seem like you're between a rock and a hard place and the impossible when something like this happens.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's good to know there is a place you can reach out to get guidance, to get assistance, and it's going to simplify things instead of making them more complicated.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you so much for listening to Ivy and Ivy Generations of Justice. If you've been in a crash and need help protecting your rights, visit ivyandivy.com to speak with Sam or Vic. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone you care about.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.